Hello, it's good seeing you. Hi to Berlin.
Hello, Colin. How's everybody doing today? It's an honor to be here.
You got some plans in the back. I didn't. I wanted to get a tree, but I thought then that doesn't work with the topic either. It's
Is
not really
is that
sustainable.
is that a little bit over the top? We thought it was quite a good idea to
No, I love it.
match the color code, of your own ship.
Great. So, Nathan, we're really happy to have you on board. It's amazing that you're joining us here on DAG. And I leave this track up to you. We're looking forward to it. The word is all yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to Pirate Live. It's an absolute pleasure to be back. We at Plan A actually have a very good history with Pirate because we have won the Walk the Plank pitch competition a couple of years ago alongside my co-founder. So it's really a pleasure to be here. We're going to try to animate this afternoon with a lot of insight on sustainability, climate tech, and really trying to give an insight through many different entry doors on how to make your company more sustainable, how to make the most of the sustainability changes happening all around us and in the economy and beyond the economy. We have a dense yet very instructional program for you. We have, first of all, our hosting Claire Calmejane, who will start off with a wonderful keynote about banking in 2050, how to harness innovation in order to implement those targets of sustainability. We will then go on to have a wonderful fireside chat with key players from two amazing companies, Dot and Ecolytic, that are wonderful players here in Germany about sustainability. And finally, a last keynote on how to create a community, how to create a community of best practice on ESG with Hannah Leach, who is a partner at a venture capital. Another aspect of this program is that we have 3 wonderful cabin sessions where you can learn the keys to decarbonization, how to communicate on your activities of sustainability, and of course, how to explain to your boss how to become sustainable. So this is what's on the menu today. I don't want to spend too much time because the knowledge today is not going to come from me. I have wonderful guests, and with no further ado, I'd like to welcome Claire Calmejane on stage, who is the Chief Innovation Officer at Société Générale, bank from France you might have heard of. She was previously involved at Lloyd's banking for the more Anglo-Saxons of our people here following. And she will be here to give us a keynote of around 20 minutes on the banking future of the 2050. Important also to mention before we get started, please feel free to ask questions. We will be taking, of course, questions and I will be able to transmit them to Claire. So don't be shy, ask anything. There is no such thing as a bad question here. We are here to learn together. And it's really, again, a pleasure for me to welcome you all to this afternoon. Before we move on to the grueling pitch competition of Pirate Summit. So with no further ado, Claire, welcome on stage. I'll leave you the microphone and the screen for you to enlighten us on the future of banking.
On my side, and to say hi to all of you across the world and obviously in Cologne. Delighted to be there at, in Paris, at least in France. It's the day that our kids are going to school, and sustainability is really at the heart of this next generation. Mine are quite small, they are 2 and 4, but some of the more older now that are entering the workforce. I often go in schools, and one of their key priorities is really around what the bank is doing in order to support the sustainability agenda. And more, I supervise SG Venture, or Startup Fund, or CVC, and some of our companies are B Corp. They have the label B Corp, which is American, which is saying that you follow a certain number of criteria that make your company more sustainable, contributing to this agenda. And I can see that it's really a factor of attraction magnet for different companies. Today, Nathan asked me, we've been working with Planet for a couple of time now, and Nathan asked me to explain how do we harness change in a very large organization. Société Générale counts 140,000 colleagues across the world. We're present in 62 countries with a 15 line of business, 10 service units, and we operate 7 retail banks, but also investment banks, specialized services, insurance. So how do you start this journey? And what are the underlying trends? I just wanted to give you a flavor. But my conviction is successful companies tomorrow will have to harness innovation and CSR at the heart of their purpose, of what they have to do to have the best talent, but also the best impact to serve the customers. So, okay. There is 4 underlying trends that are shaping banking 2050, but you could apply it to most of the sectors. The first one, we'll go a little bit deeper into it, is around the macroeconomic environment and globalization. Second one is technology disruption. Third one, workforce evolution. And fourth one, innovation and outside-in environment. So we're going to go in each of these trends to better understand what is the change which is happening in large companies and how is it taking place. But before we do that, I spoke about customer because it starts there. Why a company want to change? Why do we want to evolve? Because we always want to be the best company for our customers. And when we look at customer trends, obviously we've all been surrounded by episode of Black Mirror on Netflix, talking about what's happening in the world of social media. We're all reading what's happening around climate change, the 2-degree scenarios, the Paris Agreement. We'll talk again about that, but during the summer, a report has been issued by the IPCC that is saying that basically with the current trend, we cannot maintain Paris Agreement. We're not likely to meet, the most likely scenario, and it's urgent to take action. And customers more and more are requiring, around their investments, how can they contribute to circular economy, to new business model, to some of the renewable energy, and what, companies in general, but banks are doing in order to support this agenda. And at the same time, you're still, in the revolution of social media. I've put here Chase Cameron, which is, a non-influencer in the US, which have a story. The film is saying a story of how you become an influencer very young and start the workforce in an opposite polarity of what is purpose and a lot of impact, but opposite polarity of what is purpose, why we are here and why we do that. Obviously, it's a bit a caricature, as some of the influencers do have power and want to contribute to purpose. But that's the customer trends who are shaping, what's there. And if we project ourselves towards, okay, which type of service a company needs to offer and what is the transformation we are talking about, what is sure is our interaction with customers are changing. We need to implement meaningful video, voice, personalization, augmented experiences. And these have been more and more concrete, due to the technology advance around the services that we can find in our day-to-day. We need to have platforms, IT platforms, which are connected, predictive, proactive, using artificial intelligence, using Internet of Things. And we need to have data that we are more and more capable to compute due to cloud technology, progress around storage, accessibility, but also, there is good data, bad data, but it's another talk. And all of that need to be tied up into a purpose-led transformation, which is joining innovation and responsibility at the heart of it. So if we go back to the 4 trends I was mentioning, the first one on macroeconomic environment and globalization. This talk, I was doing it 4 or 5 years ago, and I was quoting, Jeff Bezos, I'm sure you all know him. He was saying, your margin is my opportunity. That was the most trendy quote at the period. Your margin is my opportunity, meaning what Amazon is trying to do is from a revenue perspective to attack the margin of large incumbents like banks and to arrive with a digital business model at network effect of scale, where you will manage to have a better business model, platform-based. Now, Bezos, especially post-COVID, have committed to a completely different agenda, saying, when you look at the planet, there are no borders. It's one planet, and we share it, and it's fragile. So we're seeing that from we're seeing a major trend shifting in the CEOs that are the most powerful of the planet around how do they drive their company, how do they drive their agenda. And it's definitely coming from the top. And if you go back 3-4 years ago again, we're living the shock of nationalism, Brexit, Trump, Italy, nationalism rising, and global technology platform, which were more and more global, more and more massive, more and more englobing. And what's happening is all this agenda, which was a little bit fighting, is now, superseded by the climate change. We are all surrounded in our day-to-day by fire in California, rainfall, unfortunately, in Germany, and all this wave of COVID-19, the potential recession, speculation, potential recession, but at least is, we're seeing that there is something bigger which is coming, which is all around climate. What are the challenges, though? The challenges is, if we look at the current GDP, that our projection of the World Economic Forums, the current economies, they're still fueled by traditional industry, carbon industry, and we've not changed the way our industrial business model are working. And, obviously that's part of the report I was mentioning earlier around, can we meet some of the scenarios and 1.5, 2 degrees that have been described and, requires that everyone take commitments. We need to change a little bit how these industries are fueled, how the carbon is there. And Société Générale took some engagement like other banks in 2030. We say, okay, we'll go out of all coal industries, but that's not enough. We all understand that, it's a global game. So even if you have banks that have coalition that say, okay, I will invest more and more into positive finance, positive impact, and that's our engagement, at 10 years to do that. That requires much more from an industrial point of view to reach, these challenges. So what can we leverage from a technology point of view in order to achieve, this underlying transformation, this massive change which is happening around us in the real economy? It's been, now, this is a chart of 2016, 2017. We are talking at the time being of machine learning and AI. I supervise in SocGen the AI data teams. And, it's not anymore, phantasm. It's something very concrete, like in a day-to-day, we operate a lot of AI machine learning at very large scale in Société Générale to prevent fraud, to personalize better our services, to meet basically all the new customer requirements. And all this technology can serve now this new agenda of climate change, of diversity, of all the axes basically of CSR. Diversity is a very easy one. I've championed gender diversity and diversity more generally in all my position, and I often say it's all start by the data, by really understanding what's happening on the pipeline, where is the talent, are they applying, are they getting the promotion, what is the cycle of the promotion. So really doing this type of analysis, and also being able through technology to reach a wider pool of talents than traditionally to represent that could be, especially in senior position, that you need to be in a city, based, not working, quite long hours and etc. So technology is broadly a big opportunity to do that, and more, at least I can talk about, in the bank, we are definitely seeing this connection to be made. Let's say it's not always easy. We have to push it a little bit. So I work a lot with the CSR director to say, okay, what is our joint story? Obviously, in banking, especially, a lot of the CSR agenda is pushed by regulation and the ratings. And it's important to not stop there, but really to say, okay, it's a fundamental change of the way our company should be working. And that brings us to the third trend, workforce evolution. How do we change the way, what is the underlying change of companies this size to change? And, this movement have started before, because with digital, we are already thinking we cannot train the people the same way. We've been static organization for, more than 50 years. Learning, it needs to be continuous learning now. And that just, I call it like, a rocket space, and it's the top of the rocket. Now we've put, the first building blocks, and the top of the rocket is okay. Now we need to go towards this responsibility agenda. Companies, I invite you to read the book of Dave Gray, had already a lifespan that was reducing to 15 years. So if we look at the S&P 500 companies of the world, you know, their life cycle is about 15 years is this S&P. That was greatly accelerated by digitalization. I believe it will be even more accelerated by their capacity to articulate impact and purpose in what they do in the day-to-day, because that will drive talent and that will drive customers, the customer proposition. It's to move from static and stable to adaptive and change. It's to go from the divided company, hierarchical, division of labor, specialization, stable, to the connected company. You know, some of you may have heard about holacracy, more autonomy, more flexibility, etc. So how do you do that? There is no silver bullet. Let's be honest about it. But what I know in Société Générale, obviously I work in the general management, I report directly to our CEO, and we've engaged in activities such as deploying objective key reviews, OKRs. So how can we decline the strategy of a company which is very universal with a lot of business units? You know, what makes us a group? What is our purpose? What are the priorities in our strategy? And to make it accessible and declined in clear objectives for everyone in the bank. So everyone can start to be more autonomous and to contribute and to understand better what is the purpose in the day-to-day. And last but not least, obviously, like a lot of companies, we've committed to diversify our workforce. So we have a public target by 2030 to increase 2023 actually to increase by 30%, so it's tomorrow, to increase by 30% our women in senior management, and we're traveling quite well. But we also know that diversity is a reflection of being better performing. And if we follow some of the studies of McKinsey, but also to embrace this change, to be able to provide more change agents in a context where everything is changing around us. And the last trend is really around, how do we make it concrete? Because we've seen, macroeconomic environment, we've seen technology disruption, we've seen workforce evolution. So these are three pillars that are super important, that need to be embedded in the understanding of the strategy. But the last one, how do you make it effective? How do we invent tomorrow rather than worrying about what happened yesterday? How do we stay focused? How can we create optionality? And here, let me tell you the story of the dinosaur. Why dinosaur died when other creatures survive. All the key is actually in the egg. I will invite you to read the article which is there. But what happened is the time of incubation for a dinosaur to be born is actually 6 months and then 2 to 3 years, so it can reach maturity and survive, change of climate. And it's a little bit the same if I make a comparison to, a life cycle of a traditional software, which was taking, 1 to 2 years when the requirement was set, and you push it, and then you see a first version, and you test it to customer and say, okay, it's not great. I think 2 to 3 years maybe to optimize it. And if we look at new competitor, new environment like Steve Jobs and the iPhone, but because they go to market with a product, they iterate it super quickly and they go there. And with CSR, it's exactly the same. You need to have the same mindset. We need to test, we need to go one step at the time. And that's what we are doing in Société Générale, where we invest through our SG Ventures, so our CVCs that I mentioned at the beginning. We deployed about 200 million to date, outside of majority investments. And we invest in business model, which for us is the future. We create optionality. So one of them is Shine, which is a freelancer bank in France. And it will expand, let's cross finger one day, across Europe, which have, deeply embedded values of B Corp, but also launched for, like the startup movement and their customer, the Climate Act, which engage all the business to follow, have their B Corp, calculate their carbon tax, put best practice in place. Actually, Shine is running on one of our other portfolio company, which name is Trésor. And because Shine wanted to be B Corp, Trésor, which provide 80 neobanks and financial services across Europe, had to pass all their carbon, footprint and detection. So just a way, very different leader will be integrated in our company, display, showcase, show ambition of something very different. Some of these businesses, like ICA, will promote transparency to the financial system, provide different digital solutions. Some of them, like Lumo, will provide leading energy transition. But that's very concretely, we talk about this company at the top of the company in a regular basis, not only for their business model and their revenue, but also for what they are, how does it drive the change, and what does it bring? And we embed best practices then in my team, in other team, to say, okay, we need to follow this movement. Let's start somewhere. So just to conclude on that, and we can go to the Q&A, very concretely, where did we start in Société Générale? The first step, and there is a long journey for us, there is no doubt about that. But the first step was we embedded it in our purpose. So if you read the purpose of Société Générale on our website, we want to provide, building together with our clients, better and sustainable futures through responsible and innovative financial solutions. So responsibility and innovation are in our purpose. The second thing is it's one of the 3 pillars of the strategic plan. And last, as I mentioned, we're really combining innovation and CSR because we think it's not sufficient to drive the regulatory agenda and to propose this positive impact finance, really to be reflected in everything we do, in the way our workforce work, in the way our technology is driven, in the way we apprehend new needs of customer. And so that's at a global level, and at a very local level through the innovation team in Société Générale. What I've done with my team was first to make sure they understand the issues, and we've used a tool, which is the climate workshops. It's available online and everyone can do it across the world. And we used to work with an incubator called Make Sense in France, but there are a couple across the world that can inspire you. So it's not like we don't feel capable to do it by yourself. It's more like we look and seek for constant inspiration. The second one was really to understand what is our CSR strategy, because when I started to as a team, do you understand the diversity target? Do you understand our commitment in climate change? What does it mean for you? PIF, net zero based investment, carbon, do you understand what the business units are doing for that? I found that actually people didn't master that. They had part of the answer, but they were not capable to have the narrative. So I say, okay, what's important is we all have one narrative. We can talk one voice about what is there. And there was a little, pass because people were saying like, oh yes, maybe we can do these actions or do new actions. And I was like, what, it's great sometimes to really understand what is already done and to be capable to talk about it. And when we will master that, okay, maybe we can go one step further. And last but not least, I talked about that, but we work quite a lot with the portfolio companies that we have in the organization. So if you have in your organization also companies, I invite you to get them not to talk about their business model, but really about, how do they think about it, their purpose. I found that each time we do that, it's super inspirational. It reaches thousands of people, and it really resonates with them because it's very, very concrete. We also train our team on bias. There are bias training which are available online. We're lucky enough that, in the bank, we decided to have a small budget in order to really train, teams in order to do that. And that's really to embed and get, new ways. We start a new ways of working, a new way we'll do the workforce. So that was in a nutshell, what are the 4 meta trends: macroeconomic environments, technology disruption, workforce of the future, and innovation and outside in. What are the 4 macro trends that are bringing this agenda together? What are the concrete steps of change underneath each of them? What does it mean, from a strategic point of view? And a little bit of an insight into what we are doing concretely in Société Générale. And you will see, in the next talk, as mentioned by Nathan, other examples that I hope will inspire you to start this journey. I have to say personally, I've always been, obviously I've always been on innovation, on digital and interested by that. But it started by, really getting curious and wanted to say, okay, I need to do something about it. And there is no, it don't need to be more senior or more junior. I think at every level you can inspire. I remember in my previous company in the UK, one guy started to have a walk, and it was a company of 77,000 people, and his work ended up to bring each year 30,000 colleagues across the country, across the UK, to walk for the climate, to work for a better future. And it was just started by someone that was working in operation. So really, I encourage each of you to take action and start today.
Thank you so much, Claire, for this this very brilliant nutshell. It was a pleasure to have this. Stay with us a little moment. We have a few questions. This presentation obviously sparked a lot of curiosity on the 4 different pillars and also beyond. So thank you so much for this. First, maybe let's dive right into it. You mentioned you mentioned that the climate change is now the big trend that we have to ride as businesses and as individuals. How long before this trend runs out? Do you think we will stay with this trend kind of forever now, or is there a next big thing coming behind this?
So I don't know about the next big thing. I don't think it's a new trend. What's sure is that it's been a trend that have been there for a little while. I was mentioning, my previous company, the diversity agenda, the responsibility agenda was quite deep at the heart of everything colleagues were doing. And I have to say, colleagues were spending a lifetime there because they loved, what the company was about. And I think, surely, this new wave, we can perceive it as a little bit of an uptrend, but actually I think it's been there for a long time. There is a reason company have been there for a long time, but the tech giants, the combination of nationalism and tech giants, which I was mentioning in the first part of macroeconomics, have made, I think, life for a little while, period of 10 years, I think companies had to face, this new change and try to understand, okay, how do I go about it? What does it mean for me? What does it mean for my customer? And figure it out in a world where, you had Amazon saying, your margin is my opportunity. I mean, that's very strong. Your margin is my opportunity. That means like I will go everywhere and I will take with my digital business model each pieces, of what you were doing. I think there was a little bit of, this type of mindset driving, all the agenda. But the sustainability and responsibility agenda had always been there. So I think for me, it's more a reconnection. Climate change, is it a trend or not? I think, again, it's been there for a long time. I think what is, as I mentioned, it's not going to be sufficient that, regulation is saying that now more investment need to go in a green carbon or green economy. I think, it's a massive change that need to happen. It's how do we get all the government, everyone together around what was, on the Paris Agreement or other ones. And that's a long journey, and this requires also a new generation of leaders. We don't have the choice.
Absolutely, that's we join you in this analysis as well. And what's interesting is also the increasing weight of non-financial data in the way that decisions are getting made in such big structures such as Société Générale. One question that came from the audience is how can a company like Société Générale be a contributor to sustainability? How are you part of the solution? And a second question that I find quite related: what are your actual priorities in this field as a company?
Sure. So priority number one, we've been leading the agenda in everything around renewable energy for more than 10 years. We've been rated by Vigeo as, one of the first company, towards our commitment. And the team of financing have been recognized in the industry for several years. So they've been doing that for a little while. Now, when you are an industry leader, obviously, we also have traditional part of the portfolio. One of our commitment was, as I mentioned, by 2030 to not finance coal anymore. And we've taken different engagements. I mentioned, we signed some agreement with other banks, which are called Poseidon, around, the type of financing we want, the weight we put behind each of them, basically billions that are going to a new generation, new industry business model. So that's one way. The other one is our commitment towards more diverse, leader, more diverse generations, to make them grow within our workforce. And obviously, as we are a bank, we also have a lot of clients. So we work also with our clients, part of our engagement for example, when we signed a charter to say, okay, you know, as a leader, I will not go in a panel if there is not a diversity which is represented. And please, it's not sufficient that the woman is the one holding the mic and the journalist. It needs to be a subject matter expert. But that's things that we do also with our clients in our deal. We want to reflect that our teams are diverse and that we work for them. And educate also, always propose some part of the financial solutions which have parts of you know, sustainability, the sustainability agenda, or and how is it going? I think, you know, the thing is, we all work towards, I'm sure you know, the 12 UN goals. I think not a company could be good at the 12. You know, it's a little bit about the one step at the time. I think we all have to, that was I was saying, at each level of the company, each of us need to be conscious and mindful and being able to contribute. And there is no small contribution in this agenda, in innovation at least, in the innovation portfolio, as you have seen. For me, it's more and more important. I've signed the charter to say I report regularly on my number in how much diverse are the team I'm seeing, how much diverse, you know, investment am I putting through. So which means, like, you know, how many companies have, you know, no diversity or diversity. I also push a lot of profile into it. And, you know, from a business model point of view, it's more and more important for me to invest into companies that have this mindset, this ethos, because for me, they are the business model of the future.
Just a quick aparté, we have a first cabin room opening up with Dr. Ramana Gudipudi, who is a decarbonization expert. We will be speaking for a half hour on the keys to decarbonization. So if you are interested in this, you feel free to tune in there. We're going to try and field all of the questions that are coming in for you. Claire, we might not get through all of them. Let's go just speak a lot quicker if we can. Maybe one question that I would like to rebound on, you were mentioning that you regularly report on data. We know also at Planet, being also a software data company, that it's not always easy, or at least easier said than done, to actually gather this data, this non-financial data. Do you have already systems in place, and maybe what are your biggest challenges to actually get to these objectives that you have as a company?
Yes, it's a really good question, actually. So we appointed, as part of the finance team, a data director, which is specialized in ESG, in order to make sure we can tackle this issue. Because as you can figure out, when we are, you know, such a big company, you know, getting this non-financial data is not traditional. It's what you mentioned, is at the heart of the way we operate and our governance. We're very used to report financial data, which is very, you know, which is stress test, which is monitored by the regulator, and etc. All this non-financial data didn't really add so far, you know, a way of reporting which is as robust, and that's the ambition that we set ourselves. I think, you know, like a lot of things, you have to start somewhere. I know, you know, especially because we work in finance, people want the data to be perfect and to be ready and to be there. I think, you know, you have to accept that at the beginning, it's important to start and to really understand where it is, how you can do. But basically, we appointed someone at the most senior level in the finance division, which, you know, show our commitments to this work, and all our business unit are incentivized around building this data set as fast and quick as possible. And we've been working with Planet, you know, to introduce to a couple of business units in order to get them started, because I have to be honest, you know, I think it's a journey which is daunting. You know, it's like, people are like, I don't know where to start. You know, like, it's not bugging them, because like they all embrace, you know, as human, the change. They all have kids. They all want to, you know, get in this better story. But like innovation, it's a little bit, where do I start? And working quickly with Planet, doing proof of concept, you know, delivering results. I think it's the best way to get it started.
Thank you, Claire. And maybe elaborating on this topic, where do you, well, there's a lot of question on the topic of greenwashing, and what type of actions are actually more legitimate than others, or how can a consumer know or verify that these CSR initiatives are done for the right reasons, and not for, it says in the question, positive marketing, but just marketing at large. How can we as clients in this instance verify these initiatives and this strategy?
I think we're mostly talking about retail clients, because I suspect, when you go in the financing team that I was mentioning, it's very concrete, because, you will say, okay, are you capable to do a green bond emission? Do you understand? Do you have the expert in-house? And very quickly you will see, if you're a large corporate, if the company is, walking the talk or not. And at least, that's what I hope our clients are seeing when we present all the financing offering. And again, they've been celebrated several times in the industry. Of course, there is always more to do. The reality is, I was reading through the number at the same time. Okay, we invested 100 billion between 2016 and 2020 to support the energy transition. So in terms of deals that we are financing that are, contributing to the energy transition, 100 billion again between 2019 and 2023 to support again this energy transition agenda. So it's significant amounts, and you need to have the expert and to be able to structure the deal. When it comes to retail banking, what happens is, especially when you have large banks, they will work with different providers in order to have your investment support. And here, people are wondering, okay, but behind, when I buy, let's say a traditional savings product, where exactly this money is going? What am I, where am I investing? How do I make sure? And some of the, controversy on the sector, if you are very, tuned into fintech, because we have this startup called Trezor that I mentioned, supply 80 neobanks, and some of them are green, but obviously the account of Trezor are in Société Générale. So when a company say, I'm totally green, is it true? But at the moment, there is no other way to do it in the industry. When other person that is telling you that, I think we can all find a way, you all have a way to say your story and challenge it. But at the end, as I mentioned, we need to support this agenda. We need to get into it. So, I guess part of the answer is really to, look at, if you are in a digital bank, look the way the bank communicates, make sure, in the product suite, they decline properly what is, behind the savings products. And, maybe it's not perfect, but, if they are going in the direction, after, you have to decide, we are all capable of our own choices. If you are in a, retail bank which have a network, walk in the network and try to understand from your advisor what they are doing in this field. And I think that's the best way to do it, because if the person which is at the counter tell you the story and understand front to back the strategies, that means that, the strategy is deep embedded into the organization.
And one thing that I find really interesting about what you say is where does the responsibility for implementing sustainable transition or ESG, where does it lie? And in your instance, it lies in the innovations sector, which I find really positive as an approach to how to manage this complicated and daunting sustainable transition. In a big company like Société Générale, there is a lot of opportunity for, let's say, in-house collaboration. But you also mentioned that you were part of certain networks, of certain pledges that allow you to have a common objective with other banks. I'm curious to know, in such a competitive environment as the banking sector, how do you actually create collaborative action or target setting? Do you share your findings with rival banks? How does that work in really concrete terms?
Yeah, but in non-competitive activities, especially in climate change, I think Planet is a perfect example where, between obviously CVC of banks, sometimes we make investment in startups, and we are not the only consumer, because the reason why we invest in this startup is because we don't want to build this product in-house, because we don't believe it's part of our core business. And it's a little bit what I was mentioning around the outside in. We think there are better products out there that could be mutualized between different users that will bring us further. And I think Planet is a good example where, okay, each department in the world can build their own carbon footprint calculation. But the reality is Planet is not much more than that. Planet is a carbon footprint calculation, but you also have, policymakers, you're also dealing the Green Alliance. And when I work with Planet, I'm just not looking at how do I implement software. I'm capable to understand thought leadership, access to policy, and different things. So I think that's a really good example where there is no problem at finding sharings, and you will find industry groups where generally people can go, and it's true in banking, but it's true in most of the industry. Maybe you mentioned in Société Générale, it's been taken at the top level. It's a priority. Our management committee have been trained. We've been trained on all the scenarios. I think there is not one management committee where we don't talk about it, like get a training, get an update, make sure we understand all of it. And it's been a little journey, but, all the training side is behind us. And now innovation, but basically all the departments and finance, business unit directly are accountable. They understand, declining targets, what they have to do to be successful. If in your company it's not the case yet, I think, as I mentioned, starting the climate workshops, going online, sending the reports, to your top management, starting in innovation, because it's always very easy with the innovation team to do the acculturation and to say, okay, what are these B Corp label? What are these new business model? What do we need to understand about circular economy? Do the education, start there.
Thanks, Claire. I was looking for a moment to place a little bit our Plan A products, but you've done it much better than I could ever do.
Sorry, it's not intentional.
Thanks a lot for this. Maybe one very last question, because the Pirate Live audience is always one that is quite disruptive, and there's businesses big and small. Do you feel that we are in a positive trend to address the numerous challenges of ESG and climate change? And are you hopeful for the future of our economy and of humankind?
I mean, I have to be hopeful. I have kids, so yeah, I have to be hopeful. I'm a change agent. I choose to do. As I mentioned, there is a long journey for Société Générale and most of the incumbents. So I'm far from saying, the journey is perfect. I made the choice, embracing these change roles, be innovation or responsibility, to say it's important to educate, get to action, and get stuff done. Because we go back to the egg and dinosaur thing. Is like, I know these big companies, they can produce as much PowerPoint papers and reports, and it never convert to actions. And I think, it's really important to say, let's not be daunted, let's not be overwhelmed. Each of the steps is going to bring us there, and we all have a role to play. And that's the message, continuously. Of course, I can be alarmed like any one of you in front of the report and to say, this is not going sufficiently fast, this is not making it. But, honestly, what will be the point? I think, we have to ride the journey, and we also have to enjoy the journey. And everywhere we go, I'm super impressed by our CEO of, the Shine company, of our Lumo, because, the way they inspire me. I go often to see them because they're like, wow, remember the first time Nicolas Rebout told me, like, I calculate the kilometers I'm doing with my car, and if I'm allowed to do a trip or, not a trip. And as a senior executive, let's be honest, I've been the last 10 years before COVID taking plane each week. And I was like, oh yeah, maybe this needs to change. And you know what? My life, by the way, will be better if I stop taking plane each week, because I may be able to see my kids. So I think it's, all our interest. And we all have to wear this agenda to make sure the next generation of leaders is getting into the right spot in order to make the change and to drive impact, and that the leaders that are in place have the education and take action.
Thank you so much for coming in, Claire Calmejane, and take the opportunity to do a shout out to the Pirate Live organization, which allows us to take this meeting or this conference from our own respective cities, and also for the people in Cologne who are able to follow us live. So I will give you a warm round of applause. Thank you so much, Claire.
Thanks to you.
I am very much looking forward to seeing you again and further the work on Société Générale sustainability together.
Thank you. And take action.
Take action. That's the key takeaway. Thank you so much, Claire. Have a wonderful rest of the day and weekend. Thank you so much for following this first session. So as a quick reminder, we have the Dr. Goody-Pudi, who is currently having a session. We're about more or less 1/3 in, so you can still get some valuable insight should you be interested in the cabin. But immediately on this stage, we are now moving on to the second activity of today. We are having a fireside chat with Yuki Hayashi, who is the head of marketing and public relations at Ecolytic. She's a German-Japanese polymath with a lot of experience in CSR management, communication, customer relationships, and many more domains of running a business. alongside Maxime Romain, who is one of the co-founder of Dot, the scooter company, and its CEO. He is based in Amsterdam, and he was involved with the IPO of Wayfair in New York City, worked in Decathlon, which some of you might know if you're into sports. Maxime is really passionate about sustainability, as is Yuki, and I would like to welcome them on stage with the second round of applause and a discussion on how do you engage all levels of your company into this sustainable journey.